Divine Will and Mystical Rose Center. We have folks from surrounding towns in Minnesota and Wisconsin, as well as quite a distance, such as Duluth, Iowa, Rochester, and the Dam Rangers. So welcome to everyone. We are really glad you're here to learn more about Louisa and the Divine Church. Some of you know a lot about it, and some of you don't know much at all. So we welcome everyone. Can you hear me okay? So my name is Lori Famelville, and I would like to give you a little history about this place. My late husband, Mark Anderson, and I raised our 10 children here, as well as had a greenhouse business for 25 years called Anderson Plant Farm. Maybe some of you know that. So we had 17 greenhouses and lots of work and lots of kids, and it was quite the activity for 25 years. Actually, this house here was our retail house, so that's why I got it. After my husband's sudden death in 2007, there was much sorrow and desolation in our life as we dismantled the greenhouses, and the beauty of much love and many years was flattened to the ground. Everything seemed lost and forgotten. But even through the darkness of death, faith and inspiration blossomed and sparked the idea of Mystical Rose Gardens, and so began the work to transform a plant farm into a garden paradise. After about 3 years, I could see that I kind of bit off more than I could chew. So I began to pray for the perfect maintenance man, one that would understand and love the vision that the Lord had given to me. It wasn't long, and the Lord blessed me with not only the perfect maintenance man, but a wonderful husband. His name is Mark Famelville. He is the one responsible for making this place so very beautiful and bringing to fruition and completion the vision I received over 10 years ago, which includes the Stations of the Cross and an amazing chapel. The chapel is not finished, but you are welcome to walk the stations anytime during this conference, which is across the road. You'll see it when you walk. I'd like also to introduce you to Our Lady, the Mystical Rose. In case you are not familiar to this image of her, the 3 roses, red, yellow, and white, represent prayer, sacrifice, and penance. She urges us to pray the rosary and penance for the conversion of sinners, and to pray especially for priests. Mystical Rose Gardens is dedicated to her, and the chapel is named after her, Maria Rosa Mystica. There is more information in the back there if you would like to know more about the Mystical Rose. So now for some housekeeping. The restrooms are in the retreat house, which you just follow the sidewalk around to the front of the other building. You are also welcome to visit Memory Lane. It's a hallway just past the bathroom, and you'll see Anderson Plant Farm and Mark Anderson, like we had way back then. So there is a water station over there, and tea and coffee available throughout the conference. Sorry if we ran out already. So I'd like to thank Sherry Turbeville. She's our coffee lady and our photographer. So thank you, Sherry. You will also find a schedule in your folder, and we will ring a bell 5 minutes prior to every talk. Thanks to Monica Kohlers, who will be keeping us on schedule. She'll be the one ringing the bell, and for all the work she did for the registrations. I know a lot of you get to visit with her, and she enjoys that part of this very much. So we will begin our date tomorrow with Mass at 8 a.m., followed by a continental breakfast. Lunch will be served about noon, and then we will have appetizers and some beer and wine while we enjoy a social time after the conference. We are videotaping this conference, and we'll have it put on our website, which is divinewillmysticalrose.org. And we'll put that on there as soon as we get it finished. Thanks to James Anderson for taking care of that and for helping us with the sound system. Also, Monica Kohlers' brother-in-law, Susan Christensen. Thank Greg for that. So there is paper and pens in the back in case you need that. And there is a book table with some books for sale and samples of Daniel's book and also Louisa's volumes. We couldn't have them all here, but we have the information if you want to order it. So thanks to Mary and Sophie Kohlers for attending those tables. also be passing a basket for donations for our speaker Daniel O'Connor near the end of the conference. All money will go to him and his ministry. And I'm sure you noticed some beautiful table decorations, thanks to Jennifer Medley and her children for the time spent creating these for us. And I believe she will sell them at the end of the conference as well. So now I would like to introduce to you our guest speaker all the way from New York. Daniel O'Connor is a philosophy professor who holds a master's degree in theology from the Catholic Seminary. He teaches courses in general philosophy and religion and is also a doctoral student working on a PhD in philosophy. Daniel is the founder of the Divine Will Missionaries of Mercy. He may be contacted through his personal website, which is dsdoconnor.com. Daniel teaches in and writes from New York, where he lives with his wife and 3 children. So if you would welcome Daniel with me.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Our Lady, Queen of Heaven, pray for us. Saint Joseph, pray for us. Saint Honey, pray for us. Servant of God, Louisa, pray for us. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All right, so we're going to be together for a couple days here, going over a number of talks, which means that my first order of business has to be figuring out strategically how to make sure that everybody's paying attention. With my students, I can threaten a bad grade. With my kids, I can threaten no desserts. I was trying to think, what can I threaten? I was at a loss when I realized that I have this thing right here. And I can throw it at you. You will not survive. So that's my way of admitting that my book is rather large. It's quite massive, but I'm going to be drawing heavily from it in these talks. Obviously, we won't be exhausting the material in this, so I highly recommend it. You can get it for free, it's completely free. You can hop on your phone right now if you want to just search for The Crown of Sanctity, and it would come right up. You get a PDF or an ebook for free. And if you want the paperback, it's $12 on Amazon Prime today shipping. So I don't make any money off the paperback either because I didn't want to make any money off this. And that doesn't mean I'm at all noble. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I'm very selfish. And I mean that in all seriousness. I am 100% confident, convinced that the effects of spreading the knowledge of the divine will is going to do a lot more good for me than just a bit of a royalty or something. Some people can't fathom why I'm in charge of it, but I'm trying to get it through their heads. It's because I'm selfish. I really believe, you know what I'm saying? I really believe, I know that the kingdom is going to come. It will come proportional to the time it comes, proportional to our spreading of the knowledge. So I don't want to do anything that can hinder the knowledge being spread, so hence it's free. In case there's some of you that don't take my book throwing threats seriously, and that doesn't inspire you enough to pay attention, I figured I'm going to have to use inspiration instead of fear. Fear works well with my students and maybe my kids from time to time. I'm going to have to use inspiration with you guys. So I wanted to start our talks with just several minutes of quotes from Louisa's writings on what's coming, on the nature of the kingdom to come on earth, the era of peace. For those who've never heard any of this before and have no idea what I'm talking about, real quick crash course in about 10 seconds. A glorious era of peace is going to come in the world, it's guaranteed, but it's up to us to make it happen sooner. That was what Jesus told Louisa in about 8,000 pages. So I'm going to try to compress that into a few talks here. Jesus often refers to this time to Louisa as when my will has its kingdom upon earth. And let's take a look at just a couple quotes about what that's going to be like. And I want you to hold this in your head through these talks to inspire you to take as seriously as possible what Jesus is telling Louisa. Here's one of the promises he makes about the era. Jesus says, "My daughter, when my will has its kingdom upon earth and souls living, faith will no longer have any shadow, no more enigmas, but everything will be clarity and certainty. The light of my volition will bring in the very created things the clear vision of their Creator. Creatures will touch with their own hands, and everything is done for the love of them. The human will is now shadowed of faith. Passions are clouds that obscure the clear light. And it happens as to the sun, when thick clouds form in the lower air. Even though the sun is there, the clouds advance against the light. It seems it is dark, as if it were nighttime. And if one had never seen the sun, he would find it hard to believe the sun is there. But if a mighty wind dispelled the clouds, who would dare to say that the sun does not exist, as they would touch its radiant light with their own hands? Such is the condition in which faith finds itself, because my will does not reign. People are almost like the blind, who must believe others that God exists. But when my divine fiat reigns, its light will make them touch the existence of their Creator with their own hands. Therefore, it will no longer be necessary to say it to others. The shadows of clouds will exist no more." And while Jesus was saying this, he made a wave. This is Louisa now. Saying this. While Jesus was saying this, he made a wave of joy and light come out of his heart, which will give more life to creatures. And with an emphasis of love, Jesus added, "How I long for the kingdom of my Lord. It will put an end to the troubles of the creatures and to our sorrows. Heaven and earth will smile together. Our feasts and theirs will reacquire the order of the beginning of creation. We will place a veil over everything, so that the feasts may never again be interrupted." A very holy mystic even now looks at anything created by God, a tree, even a simple flower, and he or she is immediately touched by God's grace. It's not the beatific vision, but a mystic can clearly see the glory of God reflected in everything. Well, Jesus is here promising Louisa the whole world will be that way, in that era, and that everybody will see that glory that clearly. Let's take a look at one more promise before we dive into the next topic here. I want to read one more quote on the era. "Everything will be transformed," to Jesus' words. "My will make greater display, so much so as to form a new enchantment of prodigious beauties never before seen, for the whole heaven and for all the earth." So once the divine will and the human are placed in harmony, giving dominion and regime to the divine, as is wanted by us, the human nature, and when Jesus says the human nature to Louisa, he's usually referring to the body. The human nature loses the sad effects and remains as beautiful as it came out of our creative hands. Now in the Queen of Heaven, he's talking about Our Lady there, of course, all our work is on her human will, which receives with joy the dominion of ours. And our will, finding no opposition on her part, operating prodigies and graces. And by virtue of my divine volition, she remained sanctified and did not feel the sad effects and evils that other creatures feel. Therefore, my daughter, once the cause is removed, the effects end. Oh, if my divine will enters into creatures and reigns in them, it will banish all evils in them, and will communicate to them all goods, to soul and body. We tend to forget that every single evil, not just of the moral order, but of the physical order, is a result of sin. None of it would have happened if it wasn't the fall. There wouldn't be any suffering of any sort. The cause of all of it is sin. And there is so much suffering in the world today because sin reigns in the world so deeply today. When sin is cast out, the effects of sin are cast out with it. And there will be bodily transformation as well, like Jesus says. He continues, "My daughter, you must know that the body did nothing evil, but all the evil was done by the human will. Before sinning, Adam possessed the complete life of my divine will in his soul. One can say that he was filled to the brim, to the extent that it overflowed outside. So by virtue of my will, the human will transfused light outside, emitted fragrances of his Creator, beauty, sanctity, full health, fragrances of purity, of strength, which came out from within his will like many luminous clouds.
And the body was so embellished by these exaltations that it was delightful to see, beautiful, vigorous, luminous, so very healthy, with an enrapturing grace. So if the human will is healed by receiving again the life of my divine will, all the evils of the human nature will have life no more, as if by night. That's how quickly, not magic, it's divine intervention, but it would be so quick, so powerful, so complete. I think it's magic, this initiation of the end. I suppose I'll share one more quick quote before I move on. Because I find this very interesting as a philosophy professor. I go over the ancient Greek philosophers with my students, and when they looked at the stars at night, they were more intuitive than we are today. It all looks like a big music box. If you look inside a music box, at first glance, it doesn't always make sense. It almost looks like it's a bunch of random dots just in a drum. But once that drum starts turning, beautiful music just emanates from it. Well, the ancients naturally, intuitively felt the motion of the celestial bodies also created music, literal music. Jesus tells Luisa what hears it. The creation echo of the celestial fatherland contains music, the royal march, the spheres, the heavens, the sun, the sea, and all possess order and perfect harmony among themselves. They go around continuously. This order, this harmony, this going around without ever stopping, forms such admirable symphony and music that it could be said to be like the breath of the supreme fiat blowing into all created things, like many musical instruments, and forming the most beautiful of all melodies, such that if creatures could hear it, they would remain ecstatic. Now the kingdom of the supreme fiat will have the echo of the music of the celestial fatherland, and the echo of the music of creation. And that's on earth. So that's what's coming. I've got a lot more I want to share with you about what's coming, but I'll save that for my last talk tomorrow. I just wanted to get a little taste of it, so it's in the back of our minds, it's inspiring us to move forward. So I'll tell you what else I want to do in our 5 talks. This is my first 5 talks that we have together. So I'm going to today, in just a few moments, I want to make sure everybody understands that there's no doubt regarding these revelations. I want everybody to feel confidence in their hearts and mind that this is certain. This really is completely authentic. So I need to go through some reasons for you to believe it, because I'm not asking anybody to take anything on my word. Next talk tonight, after we take a break, I want to talk about the signs of the times. Take a look at how the times we're living in right now, our present age, fits into the grand scheme. It's both in private revelation in general, and especially in Luisa's. Tomorrow, I want to talk about the gift of living in the divine will itself. This is the primary way we enter the earth, through the gift of living in the divine will, which we can receive right now, the way we earth. I'm going to talk about its foundations, the foundations for the gift of the tradition of the church, so we can understand this isn't some weird artificial development. And I also want to take a look at various other private revelations throughout the 20th century that also reveal the gift, so that we can see that this is heaven's greatest desire to this gift of God's will for us. And it's everywhere once you start looking for it. Finally, my last talk, tomorrow, I want to go into more detail in the Arab piece. So there's a rough sketch of what's coming up for the next few talks. All right. Who is Luis? Can I do a little poll here, actually? Could you raise your hand if you don't know too much about Luisa or the divine will? And could you raise your hand if you know a lot about Luisa and the divine will? We're about 50-50. So I was hoping it would be about 50-50. So for some of you who know a lot about Luisa, some of this will be review, but Jesus tells Luisa to constantly choose over and over and over again. So at least you can rest assured that the more you hear about this, even if you heard it before, is very beneficial. All right, who was she? Who was Luisa? Well, a lowly Italian laywoman who received thousands of pages of revelations from Jesus. That's the simplest way of putting it. But I want to give Saint Hannibal himself I invoked him in the beginning of this talk. You'll see why he's very important. He's a canonized saint, and he wrote, you'll hear more about his relationship to Louisa soon, but I want to introduce Louisa herself with St. Hannibal's own words. I'm taking this quote of St. Hannibal's directly from the book called The Sum of My Will. It's an official biography of Louisa published by the Vatican. 100% trusted. Here's the quote. Again, St. Hannibal's own words. Louisa never, for any reason in the world, would have put into writing her intimate and prolonged communications with the revered Jesus. Communications which have been going on from the tenderest age until today, and are still continuing until who knows when. If our Lord himself had not repeatedly obliged her to do so, both personally and through holy obedience to her directors, to whom she always surrenders with enormous duress upon herself, and also with great strength and generosity, because her concept of holy obedience would even make her refuse to enter into paradise. The purest Virgin, holy of God, who emerges to be a singular predilection of the divine Redeemer, Jesus our Lord, who century after century increases evermore the wonders of his love. It seems that he wanted to form this Virgin, he's talking about Louisa, whom he calls the littlest one he found on earth, and bereft of any education. He wanted to form Louisa into an instrument of a mission so sublime, that is, the triumph of the divine will. She receives the crucifix. She receives from our Lord himself a recurring crucifixion. After all we have mentioned of her long and continuous permanence, rooted to a bed as a victim for years and years, experiencing many spiritual and physical sufferings, it might seem that the sight of this unknown Virgin would be distressing, like seeing someone at his back with all the signs of pain endured in the past and current sufferings and the like. And yet, there is something admirable here. Seeing this spouse of crucified Jesus, who spends the night in painful ecstasies and sufferings of every kind, but then seeing her in the day, sitting up in bed, working with her needle and pins, nothing, absolutely nothing shows through. Nothing of someone afflicted who suffered so much during the night. No appearance of something out of the ordinary. On the contrary, she looks entirely like someone who is healthy, happy, and jovial. She talks, chats, laughs when appropriate, and even receives a few friends. Sometimes someone with a troubled heart confides in her and asks her for prayers. She listens with kindness, she comforts, but she never goes so far as to act like a prophetess. Never a word that might hint at revelations. The great comfort she offers is always one thing, always the same, the divine word. Although she does not possess any man-made knowledge, she is abundantly endowed with a wisdom that is fully celestial, the science of the saints. Her way of speaking enlightens and consoles. By nature, she is not lacking in intelligence. She studied up to the first grade when she was little. Her writing is filled with mistakes, although it is not without the appropriate terms in conformity with the revelations which seem instilled in her by our Lord. So that's St. Hannibal himself. He's repeatedly pointing out Louisa's incredible humility. And it's providential because I was just in my car the other day listening to EWTN. It was a rerun of a Mother Angelica talk. And she was saying the primary way of knowing the revelations from God is a seer driven with humility. And I don't know of any soul who exemplifies that more than Louisa. It's only because of the intervention of the Catholic Church that we even have her right. She didn't even deem herself worthy of writing anything down. She truly is the humblest soul that I've ever read of, at least after a lady, of course. So that's what St. Hannibal thinks about Louisa. I think we should agree with him. He is a canonized saint. That quote was included in official Vatican biography. So what's the essence of this message then that encompasses thousands upon thousands of pages? Before I go into any more details and the authenticity, I want to try and give you a little sense of the overarching theme of these revelations. And I've obviously spent a lot of time with them, and I've tried to boil down at least the essence of it into one page. And I don't know if I succeeded or not, but I tried. And in case anyone wants to just try and get a quick sense of what these revelations are about, I want to read you this one page. And this is from my book again. This is right in the beginning of it. And here's how I would put it, if I was asked again to summarize the essence of these revelations in just a couple minutes. At this unique moment in the history of the world, the fitting time has at long last arrived in which God wishes to give us his own will, the gift that contains every imaginable gift. This gift entails not only the grace to do God's will perfectly, but also the total immersion of your human will within his divine will, so that this divine will becomes the life principle of your soul, even as your soul is now the life principle of your body. Within this gift is all love, invincible joy, perfect peace. Within it is absolute assurance of salvation. Within it is deliverance from purgatory. Within it is God's infinite pleasure. Within it is complete victory of every noble mission in one simple principle. Within it alone is the full realization of man's creation in the image and likeness of God. Within it is the culmination of deification, the fruitfulness of mystical marriage, the aspiration of the unification of wills, the essence of Marian consecration. You cannot earn this gift or merit. You can only allow God to give it to you. And in exchange for his divine will, he asks only for your loving and trusting relinquishing of the tiny pebble of your own human will. Whoever you are, no matter what, it's easy to allow him to give you his will. Simply say to him with sincerity, Jesus, I trust in you. Thy will be done. I give you my will, and in return I want to live only in your will. If you strive to converse with him continually after this manner, you can rest assured that he is giving you his will. It is that simple, at least to begin with. God wishes also, I'll continue reading this quote here, this page, God wishes also to give this gift to the whole world. Pray unceasingly for the coming of the kingdom of the divine will. This is Arapisa just quoting that. By way of which God's original design for the world and mankind will at last be realized. Pray with the joy and confidence that comes from knowing that the arrival of this reign is a guarantee, for it is nothing other than the full realization of the fiat voluntas tua of the Lord's Prayer which Jesus himself prayed, and thus it bears the absolute certainty of being fulfilled. His arrival is only a question of time, but you can and are now called to hasten this time. Entrust yourself completely to Our Lady, who lived more perfectly in the divine will than any other creature ever has or ever will. And she who loves you, her dear child, will ensure that you live in the will of her Son. Finally, rejoice always in the invincible and continuous peace that will inevitably inundate the soul of anyone who really believes these truths. And I'll end this one page with a couple of quick quotes from Jesus. Jesus tells Louisa, do you want that my will that reigns and lives in you is life? If you truly want it, everything is done. Not too much is needed to live with my will. If your volition decides and strongly and perseveringly wants it, already you have conquered mine and made it yours. See then how easy it is to live in our will. The creature does not have to do new things, but whatever she does, that is, to carry out her life as we gave it to her, but in our will. Oh, how I would love everyone to know that if they want to live in my will, they have a queen and a powerful mother who will compensate for all they lack. She will raise them on her maternal lap. It's hard to imagine anything. If you asked me to sit down and have the craziest, most optimistic, hope-filled pipe dream, I wouldn't be able to come up with something that good. And this is absolutely trustworthy as from Jesus himself. Let me try and prove that to you now, because we need to be confident of this. So why so much confidence? Anybody, of course, can get out there and make any claim, but we can tell from the situation here that this is trustworthy. So let's look at a few things to remind ourselves of that. We talked about St. Honeywell just a couple minutes ago, so I want to pick up with him. He's key to this. Pope St. John Paul II himself canonized St. Honeywell in 2004. St. Honeywell was a great priest. He was a zealous worker of many apostolates, started a school, an orphanage, 2 religious congregations. He's still well known to this day for being the founder of the Rogationists, an order dedicated to praying for the priestly vocations. JP2 himself said, St. Honeywell had a love for the Lord that moved him to dedicate his entire life to the spiritual well-being of others. Unfortunately, you won't often hear in common writings on St. Hannibal that, well, he was appointed by his archbishop to be Luisa's spiritual director, central librorum, and extraordinary confessor. He became so utterly convinced of the truth of Luisa's revelations that he dedicated his life to promoting them. He said 4 months before he died, and by the way, when a saint is canonized, their whole life is very important, but the end of their life is especially important. It really seals who they are, the choices they make in the later parts of their life. Well, this is what St. Hannibal said 4 months before he died. I want you to know that since I have totally dedicated myself to the great work of the divine will, I practically don't concern myself at all with my institutes. It means the various other apostates he is. It's not at all to detract from the importance of them. But we should be really touched by that this man who did such great and important things, when he learned about Luisa's revelations, he only had part, we have much more than he dedicated his life to in his canonized. He said, Luisa's revelations consist in a mission so sublime that no other can be compared to. That is the triumph of the divine will on the whole earth, in conformity with what is said in the Our Father. That's the boldest claim of all Luisa's revelations, that the Our Father, the primary petition of the Our Father, is now about to be fulfilled. And God is doing that through these revelations. St. Hannibal is explicitly endorsing the most bold claim in all of her revelations. That is, we can never say, oh, he died before she made the really bold claim to first time. He's right there advocating for the boldest of them. Let's take a look at a couple other points. St. Hannibal, Melanie Calvat was a seer at La Salette. He was in an order that St. Hannibal formed. She stayed in a convent there. St. Hannibal knew her well. JP2, after beatifying St. Hannibal, 7 years after that, 7 years before canonizing, John Paul II said, St. Hannibal saw the means that God himself had provided to bring about the new and divine holiness with which the Holy Spirit wishes to enrich Christians at the dawn of the third millennium in order to make Christ the heart of the world. John Paul II was trying to draw attention to the fact that Hannibal devoted himself to precisely this new and divine holiness, this gift of living in the divine will. He's trying to push people in that direction, remind them of St. Hannibal's greatest passion. This is now a pope claiming the most bold claim of Luisa's as his own. He even said later, 5 years later, JP2 said that he encouraged a gathering of youth in Rome to, quote, enter into and live in the divine will. What do we have so far? We've got the bold words of a saint, the Pope who canonized him in support of Luisa's writings, but we still have so much more. I don't want to spend too much time going through too much right now, so I'm going to start kind of skipping some things, but just take a look at the book, the chapter on the authenticity of the revelations if you want a better overview. Again, free online. When St. Hannibal took Luisa's Hours of the Passion to Pope St. Pius X, many of you know this already, he responded, Pope St. Pius X said to St. Hannibal, this should be read while kneeling. This is Jesus. Let's take another. A lot of you also probably know about the relationship between Luisa and Padre Pio. There really was one. Luisa highly revered Padre Pio, and Padre Pio highly revered Luisa. He would tell pilgrims who came to him from Corato, he'd say, what are you doing? You have Luisa and Corato, go to her. Some people tried to dispute this connection, but that disputation has itself been refuted, again, by the official Vatican biography of Luisa, which reads, quote, there are countless testimonies beyond Federico Brecht and Miss Caterina Valentina that talk about the mutual esteem and faith Luisa and Padre Pio had in each other, perhaps because of the deep similarities in their lives too. And then it goes on to quote many other details that point out that connection truly did exist. All right, so St. Hannibal, Padre Pio, Pope St. Pius X. This is the case is starting to look rather certain, but we're still nowhere near done. The church so far has appointed no fewer than 4 separate theologians to go through all of her writings. All of them have been declared free of any error, free of any doctrinal error. In 2011, a religious order dedicated to Luisa's spirituality, the Benedictine Daughters of Divine Will, were approved. They are now an official religious order dedicated to Luisa's revelations. And in the biography I've been quoting, The Son of My Will, that was from 2016. In 2015, a woman reveals that she was miraculously healed through the intercession of Luisa. In November 2016, the Vatican publishes its official Dictionary of Mysticism. Luisa has an entry in it. There's more, the list goes on, but at this point, there's not much doubt. But I do want to read one brief quote. The Vatican biography I just talked about, it has a preface written by a cardinal, and it's not just any cardinal. It's Cardinal Jose Saraiva Martinez. He was the prefect emeritus for the Congregation for the Causes of Saints. If there's anyone in the whole church who knows what makes a saint and a valid mystic, it's the prefect of the Congregation for the Causes of Saints. He wrote the preface to this biography of Luisa promoting her revelations. And in this preface he said specifically, from Luisa's continual contemplation of Jesus' passion, Luisa is led to conform herself to Christ. This living in the divine will is the actual way in which the Son Jesus lived on earth, bringing here with him the life of heaven. So you can't argue that, oh, this is just talking about her virtues. No, the preface from this cardinal is specifically endorsing the gift of living in the divine will itself. There's no denying it. So we really can't get around it. And I don't want to bore you with more of those administrative details, though. There's a bunch more. I want to get into something that's not talked about much, and that is prophecies. Now, I haven't done enough research to prove this with certainty, but I am quite confident that if you looked at all of the prophets in the history of the entire church, you will find many fulfilled prophecies. You will find many things that were foretold days, months, even years in advance, and they happened precisely as they were said to have happened. Well, Luisa's revelations have more fulfilled prophecies than any other revelation in the history of the church. I'm pretty confident of that. Not absolutely certain, but quite confident. Let me take a look at just a couple. World War II. Everybody knows, I should say everybody. A lot of people know that Our Lady of Fatima prophesied that. Indeed, she did. But so did Luisa. St. Hannibal wrote about Luisa's prophecies. In the course of these publications which we are beginning, there are chapters which foresee divine scourges, earthquakes, wars, fire, cloudbursts, devastation of lands, epidemics, famines, and the like. Everything, he repeats that word in his own letter, has been predicted several years before, and everything has come about, and much yet is left to come about. St. Hannibal died in 1927. Before 1927, he was blown away by how many prophecies were given to Luisa and then fulfilled. And he only saw the tip of the iceberg. We have so much more than he did now that we can look back on. In 1923, Jesus said to Luisa, it is the second general turmoil that the nations are preparing. 1923. So after World War I, wasn't known as World War I then. They didn't know there'd be a World War II. It was just called the Great War. But Jesus is here specifically saying to Luisa, in 1923, they are preparing a second general turmoil. I have done everything to dissuade them, but everything has been in vain. The more they are united together, the more discords, hatreds, and injustices they foment, to the point of forcing the oppressed to take up arms to defend themselves. When it comes to defending the oppressed and justice, also natural, I must concur. They should have understood this by themselves and been meager toward the oppressed. On the contrary, they are more inexorable, wanting not only their humiliation but also their destruction. What perfidy. In 1923 again, Jesus said, last year, France, by moving against Germany, rang the first bell. Italy, by moving against Greece, rang the second war bell. Then another nation will come, which will ring the third and call them to fight. Well, we all know now that that's exactly how World War II started, when Germany invaded Poland, the third battle. 1927, Jesus says, "This century can be called the century of the most awful pretenses among all classes. And this is why they never come to an agreement among themselves. And while apparently it seems that they want to agree, in reality they are plotting new wars. Pretense has never brought true good, either in the civil order or in the religious order. The most, a few shadows of fleeting good. And so here's how they are converting that peace, so praised with words, but not with deeds, into preparations for war. As you can already see, many different races have united to fight, some with one pretext, some with another, and more will unite together. But I will use the union of these races, because for the coming of the kingdom of my divine will, it is necessary to have the union of all races by means of another war, much more extensive than the last one." Well, indeed, we of course all know World War II was much more extensive than the one before it. But Jesus is reminding Louisa, as evil as this is, he only allows it for a reason, because this was all preparation. We're still in the preparatory phases, of course. But he needed to allow it for the sake of forming his kingdom on earth. Let's see if I can share. See if I have time to share maybe one or two more real quick. He said also, "What wickedness! After so many evils of the war they have gone through, they are preparing another one, more terrible. And they are trying to move almost the entire world, as if it were one single man. Does this not say that sin has entered deep into their bones, to the point of transforming their very nature into sin?" So he's constantly lamenting, after World War I, that they're preparing another. Time and time again, Jesus tells us to Louisa. Louisa wasn't exactly an international affairs expert. There's no way she could have humanly predicted these things. And she certainly wasn't a geologist either. So why do I bring that up? Well, let's take a quick look at another prophecy. Of course, even if she was a geologist, it would make no difference, because geologists themselves cannot predict earthquakes, but Jesus can. April 17th, 1906. We read it in her diary. "This morning I had a bad time. I was outside of myself and could see nothing but fire. It seemed that the earth would open and threaten to swallow cities, mountains, and men. It seemed that the Lord would want to destroy the earth, but in a special way, 3 different places, distant from one another, and some of them also in Italy. They seemed to be 3 mountains of volcanoes, some sending fire which flooded cities, some places the earth was opening, and horrible quakes would occur. I could not understand very well whether these things were happening or will have to happen. How many ruins? Yet the cause of this is only sin, and man does not want to surrender. It seems that man has placed himself against God, and God will arm the elements against man, water, fire, wind, and many other things, which will cause many on many to die." Okay, so remember, this is 1906. This is April 17th, 1906. Specifically showing 3 different places distant from another, one of them in Italy, earthquakes. Well, you can see for yourself that that's when this diary entry was written, if you just look it up. And you can also take a look at the history of earthquakes, and you'll see the very next day, April 18th, 1906, the Great San Francisco earthquake. The USGS says it ranks as one of the most significant earthquakes of all time. It remains the deadliest earthquake in American history. It was the very day after Louisa was given that message. 4 months later, the 1906 Valparaiso earthquake occurred in Chile, killed even more people than the San Francisco quake did. 2 years later, the 1908 Messina earthquake wreaked havoc in Italy, just as Louisa was shown. It is still the worst and deadliest earthquake in European history. At least 80,000 people were killed, maybe even up to 200,000. The city of Messina was destroyed, and Louisa was also shown this exact earthquake the morning before it happened. There are many other prophecies. I just wanted to share a couple with you that have since been fulfilled. But I want to get a little less theatrical for a moment and just take a look at Luis's own concerns. I don't think anyone struggled with the authenticity of her revelations more than she did, because she was a diligent seer. She didn't want to just take anything for granted. She wanted to test this and be absolutely certain it was from Jesus. So I really want to end our first talk here by taking a look at this quote from her diary on March 7th, 1922. It's from this quote, I think we can learn from Luisa's own struggles, even if they're our own. And I think the same solution will work for us, and we'll see this in a moment. Here's Luisa writing. I was thinking about what has been written, and I said to myself, is it really Jesus that speaks to me, or is it a trick of the enemy in my fantasy? And Jesus, on coming, told me, my daughter, my words are full of truth, of light. They carry with them the virtue of transforming the soul into truth itself, into light itself, and into the very good which they contain, in such a way that the soul does not only know the truth, but she feels within her the substance of operating according to the truth which she has known. Further, my truths are full of beauty and attraction, in such a way that the soul, taken by their beauty, lets herself be enraptured by them. In me, everything is order, harmony, and beauty. See, I created the heavens. They alone could have been enough. But no, I wanted to adorn them with stars, almost studding them with beauty, so the human eye might enjoy more from the works of its creator. I created the earth, and I adorned it with many plants and flowers. I created nothing which did not have its own ornament. And if this is in the order of created things, much more so my truths, which reside within my divinity. While it seems that they reach the soul, they are like solar rays, which hit and warm the earth without ever departing from the center of the sun. And so the soul remains so enamored with my truths that she finds it almost impossible not to put into practice the truths she has known, even at the cost of her life. On the other hand, when it is the enemy, but a speculation fantasy, that wants to speak about truths, they bring neither light, nor substance, nor beauty, nor attraction. They are empty truths, without life. And the soul does not feel the grace to sacrifice herself to put them into practice. Therefore, the truths that your Jesus tells you are full of life, and all my truths contain. Why do you doubt? This is, I think, the best way to remind yourself of the authenticity of Luisa's revelations. So open them up, look at them, read them, and you will feel truth exuding out of them. And it might just remind you of, if you had a conversion story at some point in your life, the same feeling you had when you opened up sacred scripture, and you could feel it coursing with life. You will feel that if you really dive into Luisa's writings. So that's what I want to leave you with for this first talk. And let's take a break and we'll come back and talk about the signs of the times. So in our first talk, I just wanted to make sure we had a solid foundation to rest on for the remainder of this conference. So we can always recall those things we reviewed so that we can remind ourselves of how much confidence we can approach all of these. But now I want to back up and take a look at the signs of the times in general. This conference, I believe, is called Living in the Divine Will and Understanding Our Times. And our times truly are central to this message. This is not just, Jesus did not just randomly choose this century, this age, this era as the one to reveal this message. This has been, he's been planning this for thousands of years. And we are seeing an explosion of prophecy and private revelation in the last 100 years, indicating that this is indeed the time. I want to try to take a very brief look at some of that in the next 45 minutes or so. Luis's revelations, I think, really can be seen as the crown of this explosion of private revelation and prophecy in the 20th century. Not so much chronologically, they came largely in the middle of that, but ontologically, insofar as they really are that in which all of these revelations are pointing towards. They are the fulfillment of all of these other revelations. I'm not saying Luis's revelations are scripture, but I'm just drawing an analogy that just as the New Testament is the fulfillment of all the prophecies of the Old Testament, they're all pointing towards something. And you can only see it completely beautifully in hindsight. Having the New Testament, you can look back at the Old and see how all of these prophecies really were building up over the thousands of years for the perfect time of the redemption. Likewise, all of these Marian apparitions, especially, but private revelation in general, particularly Marian apparitions, have been building up to a crescendo that we've been witnessing in the last century. And that Luisa's revelations are what all of these are pointing to. So, it's impossible for us to dive into all of them. There have been so many that all we can really do right now is try to get a bit of an idea as to their main thrust, a bit of a summary of some of their main themes. I want to defer to people like Father Iannuzzi, Mark Mallet, Father Rene Laurentine, Dr. Mark Miravalli. People like them have spent enormous amounts of time going through all of these revelations and trying to really squeeze out of them Our Lady's battle plans for us, the Church of Militant today. I think they've done an excellent job. One of these people, like the names I just listed, was Father Edward O'Connor. I'm just curious, how many people have heard of Father Edward O'Connor? A few, yeah. I find that in general, he's not very well known, but he is a gem. He's passed away a few years ago, unfortunately. He was a theologian, priest, professor of theology at Notre Dame, I believe. And he wrote a book called Listen to My Prophets. He wrote a number of books on private revelation and prophecy. And in fact, the last book he wrote before he died, he's not only a theologian, not only a great scholar, but an expert in private revelation in particular, and in prophecy and the signs of the times. He wrote extensively on it. But his last book before he died, guess what that was on? Luisa, Living in the Divine Will, promoting her. God knew what he wanted Father Edward O'Connor's last book to be. And I highly recommend that. It's very short, but it's good that he threw his weight behind it and really advocated for it. But let's take, he also gave an overview of the signs of the times in his book, Listen to My Prophets. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the church still is not listening. They're not heeding the title of that book, Listen to My Prophets. And I hate to say it, this largely includes so-called Orthodox Catholics in the church. They largely want nothing to do with this. But that's not okay. You can't just say this is just private revelation, you can ignore it. Just because it's private revelation doesn't mean we can ignore it. Heaven doesn't speak so that we can ignore it. It means, it's not scripture, it's not the faith itself, sure, but it is important, it is a revelation. And here's our Father O'Connor, no relation, by the way. I think there's a few people with that last name. Here's what he says. Here's his overview of what is going on in all of these revelations. Just a couple paragraphs. He says the basic message is that of St. Faustina. And actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to pause at that. I argue that God's two final efforts in the world, I really believe, are primarily of salvation and sanctification. Those are the two things that he really wills for all people. Their salvation and their sanctification. Yet that is always what he has in mind. I believe that God's final effort of salvation was through St. Faustina, and his final effort of sanctification was through Luisa. And that's an oversimplification, of course, but I think that's one way of understanding what he's been doing. And Father O'Connor says here, the basic message of all of this explosion of private revelation is that of St. Faustina. We are in an age of mercy, which will soon give way to an age of justice. The reason for this is the immorality of today's world, which surpasses that of any past age. I'll pause there as well. It's very fashionable in scholarly circles especially to kind of poo-poo any idea of doing something special at the time we're living. Because it's as if in saying that. You just don't know enough about history. But really, it's the people who fail to say it that don't know enough about history. The world is more sinful today than it ever has been before. Even the popes have said this. Even Pope Francis said this. He says, he said recently, I don't think it's any better today than it was before, right before the flood. Pope Pius the 10th, 11th, or 12th, one of them said the exact same thing, that we are more sinful today even than before the flood. And we all know why the flood happened. Anyway, continuing on with Father Connor's quote here. The reason for this is the immorality of today's world will surpass that of any past age. Things are so bad that Satan is reigning over the world. Even the life of the church itself has been badly affected. Apostasy, heresy, and compromise challenge the faith of the people. I'm going to pause there again as well. Today, apostasy, heresy has reached levels that it never has been before. You often hear people say, well, of course it's been this way before. Just look at the Arian heresy. The Arian heresy was quite a tragedy. It was nothing compared to what we're seeing today. Nothing. Today we have the natural law itself being rejected. And we have many in the church doing exactly this. Many bishops, many cardinals. Our Lord, as we all know, calls us to the straight and narrow. It's narrow. But that narrow has become razor thin today. And we have to stay on that razor thin, straight and narrow in order to mitigate these chastisements. Picking up with the quote again. Not only the laity, but also priests and religious are grievously at fault. The hidden form of masonry has entered into the church. Because of all this, God has been sending prophets as never before to call us to repentance. Most of them, most often, it is the Blessed Mother who speaks through them. She warns of an unprecedented tribulation that lies in the very near future. The church will be torn apart. The Antichrist, already alive in the world, will manifest himself. Up to now, Mary has been holding back the punishment due to us. The time will come, however, when she will no longer be able to do so. Not only the church, but the whole world will experience tribulation. There will be natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, fierce storms, strange weather patterns. Economic ruin will plunge the whole world into poverty. There will be warfare, perhaps even a third world war. There will also be cosmic disasters in the form of devastating meteors striking the earth or other heavenly bodies, passing close enough to wreak havoc. Finally, a mysterious fire from heaven will wipe out the greater part of mankind and plunge the world into utter darkness for 3 days. Before these terrible events take place, we will be prepared first by a warning in which everyone on earth will see his or her own soul as it appears before God. And secondly, by a miraculous sign. The disasters will come to purify the world and leave it as God intended it to be. The Holy Spirit will be poured out as never before and renew the hearts of all mankind. Most of the visionaries insist the time left before these things take place is very short. Some indicate that the fulfillment is begun already. To protect us against the dangers predicted, we are urged to frequent the sacraments, to pray and do penance. The proclamation of Mary as mediatrix, co-redemptrix, and advocate is called for and predicted. Remember, he's drawing this as the main thrust of private revelation from the dozens, if not hundreds, that he analyzed. And I think he hit the nail on the head. But remember that this is all for a reason. The hour that comes after the chastisements is going to be so glorious that we'll realize it was worth it. Obviously, the world as it now is not exactly ready for a glorious hour of peace. Because I hate to say it, most people out there don't want God's peace. He's making every effort now to bring in as many people into this divine mercy as possible. Because the time of mercy is drawn to a close. And there's no room during the era for those who will not accept the divine mercy. So it's up to us to draw as many souls in, to hasten the coming of the kingdom. You might wonder, why on earth do I want to hasten the coming of the kingdom if it's going to be preceded by all these chastisements? Well, the chastisements are going to come either way. But the more we delay, the worse they're going to be. The longer we have to wait for the kingdom, the worse the chastisements are going to be. The more we hasten the coming of the kingdom, the more mitigated the chastisements will that means the salvation of our souls, which is what we should above all care about. Now, I think it's fair to say that Father O'Connor did a perfect job summarizing the main thrust of private revelation in general. I want to quote what he said before that summary. He points out that there were a total of 1,045 apparitions of the Blessed Mother during the 20th century. Exponentially more than any century preceding. This means that God is on the move. And through Luisa, we see that it really is just like it was 2,000 years ago. I want to take a look at a couple of quotes. Luisa's revelations themselves give us an idea about the general sense of the times as far as all of these private revelations are concerned. We see the overall message in even more clarity, though, in Luisa's messages regarding our time. So let me read a couple of quotes here. Jesus tells Luisa, two links connected together. The redemption and the kingdom of my divine will are inseparable from each other. The redemption was to prepare, subdue. The kingdom of the fiat is to fulfill and possess. Both of them is the highest importance. Both of them are the highest importance. Therefore my gazes were fixed on the chosen ones, to whom one and the other were entrusted. All of my works hold hands. And this is the sign that they are my works, that one does not oppose the other. Jesus continues, there is much analogy between the way in which redemption unfolded and the way in which the kingdom of my divine will unfold. In my redemption I chose a virgin. In appearance she had no importance according to the world. I chose her from Nazareth, but I wanted for it to belong to the capital city, Jerusalem, in which there was the body of the pontiffs and priests who represented me then. For the kingdom of my divine will, I have chosen another virgin, who though in appearance has no importance, either of greater riches or height, dignity, but the very city of Corato, that's Luisa's hometown, is not an important city, but it belongs to Rome, in which resides my representative on earth, the Roman pontiff, from whom come my divine laws. And just as he makes it his duty to make my redemption known to the peoples, so will he make it his duty to make known the kingdom of my divine will. It can be said that one and the other will proceed in the same way in man as the kingdom of my supreme fiat must unfold. This happened in the redemption. Every manifestation that was made by us about the descent of the Word on earth was one step that we made toward mankind. And as they yearned and prayed for it, and our manifestations, prophecies, and revelations were manifest to the people, so they made so many steps toward the Supreme Being, such that they remained on a walk toward us, and we toward them. As the time of having to descend from heaven to earth drew near, we increased the prophets in order to be able to make more revelations, in order to hasten the walk on both parts. There's one more paragraph I want to read, but let me pause there. What we don't often see in other private revelations, and some of them we do, but nowhere as clear as Luisa's, that not only is this a pivotal age, not only is the world mired in sin and error, and there needs to be a divine correction, and indeed there will be. Not only that, but we are living in a time that is truly parallel to the times immediately before the redemption itself. Now don't think that I'm not preaching millenarianism or dispensationalism. We're not waiting for a new public revelation. We're not waiting for a new church. We're not waiting for a new dispensation. We're already in the end of the age with Christ's birth. But the glorious intervention that Jesus is about to make in grace, not physically until the end of time, in grace, parallels that of redemption itself. I mean, how many of you have wondered how amazing would it be to be alive when Jesus walked the earth and when Christianity was just beginning? And this was so new, when nobody knew about this yet. When you can tell people something and blow them away. That's exactly the time we're living in right now. It's just as exciting, maybe even more so. Jesus says to Luisa, this is so true that in the first times of the world there was no prophet. And our manifestations were so few that one can say that one step a century was made. This slowness of walk casts coldness on the part of preachers. There's a way of saying held by almost everyone that my descent on earth was an absurd thing. not a reality like one thinks today, about the coming of my will, coming about the kingdom of my will, a way of saying, and almost a thing that cannot be. Now that's amazing, isn't it? That's how many Christians, Catholics, maybe even most, have started to treat the Our Father. They treat it as greatest petition, the climax of the Our Father. Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. That people treat that as if it's just wishful thinking, as if it's just a nice sentiment. That's how Christians tend to think of that today, because they don't realize that Jesus actually meant it. But that's the same thing they said about redemption itself. Jesus is pointing it to us. They always knew the Messiah was promised. The ancient Jews always knew it. But they started to think that, oh, well, that must be just kind of a manner of speaking. That must not really happen. It must not be literal. It is literal. It was literal with the coming of Messiah, Jesus, and it's literal with the coming of the kingdom of his will. He says that therefore, I'm going to continue the quote. Therefore, the prophets came after Moses, almost in the last times, near to my descent on earth, such that after our manifestations, the walk of both parties hastened. And then came the sovereign of heaven, Our Lady, who not only walked, but ran in order to hasten the meeting with her Creator, so as to make him descend and complete redemption. So the same things that we saw leading up to redemption itself, a long period of almost coldness and dryness. Now, the history of the Catholic Church is, of course, a glorious thing, but in the earlier times, at least before this explosion of private revelation, there started people kind of started not really supposed that the kingdom could fully come on earth. There were always movements that believed it, but it started to be looked at as just a manner of speaking. The church never taught that that's what it is, of course, but that's how it was started to be treated. And then, the closer and the closer and the closer the time came to redemption, the more and the more and the more prophets there were. You know, you can just see in the Old Testament, but by the time around the Old Testament, there weren't many prophets before Moses. And then, after Moses, the closer you got to the incarnation and redemption, the more prophets there were. And then finally, it was all capped off by one, you could say, ultimate prophet. Although much more than a prophet, of course, Our Lady herself. When she came, Jesus says she ran. She was the one who truly prepared for the kingdom of redemption to come on earth. And that this is all parallel by the last century leading up to now. This explosion of prophets, because the time is so close. God does not act arbitrarily. No one can deny that there's been an explosion of Marian apparitions in the last century. And even if they're not all valid, I'm sure they're not all, but most of them are, and even if only 10% of them are, it's still an explosion of apparitions. And this means something. It means the same thing that the explosion of prophecy meant before the coming of Christ in the flesh. That God is about to move in a cosmic, history-defining way. Let's take a look at a little bit more. My daughter, this is Jesus speaking to Louisa, each prophecy I gave to my prophets about my coming upon earth was like a commitment I made to creatures of my coming into their midst. And the prophets, by manifesting them, disposed the peoples to desire and want of good so great. And these, in receiving these prophecies, received the deposit of the commitment. And as I kept manifesting the time and the place of my birth, I kept increasing the pledge of the commitment. So I am doing with the kingdom of my will. Each manifestation I make concerning my divine fiat is a commitment that I make. There's, 5,000 pages of these commitments. Each individual truth Jesus reveals to Louisa, he says, is another promise that the kingdom is coming. Now, the most important thing, of course, is to have this kingdom reign in our own souls. And we can do that through the gift of living in the divine will, and reading about these revelations and learning from them. But it's also, Jesus assures us, a promise for it to reign on earth. Continuing, let's take another broad look at the nature of what God is doing throughout history and with our age today. Jesus tells Louisa, those who think that our highest goodness and infinite wisdom would have left man with only the goods of redemption, without raising him again to the original state in which he was created by us, deceive themselves. In that case, our creation would have remained without its purpose, and therefore without its full effect, which cannot be the works of God. At most, we might let centuries pass and turn, giving now one surprise, now another, entrusting now one little bit to the creature, now a greater one. Jesus is telling Louisa, he is not going to leave his work incomplete. He is not going to let time end before he has restored and made even more glorious what he created in the beginning. Redemption is the means of salvation. It is supremely important, but no one can deny that redemption did not restore us to our original glory. Until that's done, God is not finished. There's a quote I love from one of Mark Mallett's writings. He says, God's last words, let's see if anyone can fill in the blank, if anyone's read this. God's last words at the end of time will not be, anyone heard this? God's last words at the end of time will not be, oh well, I tried. That's how we end things a lot. That's how I often end things. Like trying to get my kids to obey me. But God knows what he's doing. He's not going to leave this work incomplete. He's going to raise us up to our original glory. And in some ways, redemption already surpasses our original glory. Don't get me wrong, but not in every way. And Jesus, for his work to be complete, is to restore us and surpass us to the original glory in every way. Continuing on with the quote. The decision of giving the kingdom of my will to man I have not changed. Man changes. God does not change. Now things are easier, because the goods of redemption have made their way. They have made known many surprises of my love for man. How I have loved him, not by the fiat alone, but by giving him my very life. Though my fiat costs me more than my very humanity, because the fiat is divine and then it's eternal, while the humanity is human, limited, and has its beginning in time. However, not knowing the depth of what the fiat means, its value, its power, and what it can do, the human minds let themselves be conquered more by all that I didn't suffer in coming to redeem them. Not knowing that under my pains and my death, there was my fiat, hidden, which gave life to my pains. Jesus, this is very mystical language, but Jesus is reminding us, telling Louisa and reminding us all through her, these are not separate things. Redemption and sanctification are one work of God. They're separated in time, and we see them as different, of course. But by this fiat of sanctification that's coming, that's already reigning in those who live in his will, and it's coming upon the whole earth, this is not something that we move on from redemption to. Of course not. We're always in the age of redemption. This is the same work that God was doing. He's just revealing now to Louisa in more depth what he did on earth. He's somewhere in the diaries he says, if all I wanted to do was redeem man, one drop of blood would have been enough. Instead, you know the story. Instead, he shed all his blood for us. He went through the most atrocious agonies imaginable, and much more, because he was doing more than just redeeming us. In his passion, he was building up the kingdom of the divine will. And it remains there. It remains there for us to claim. But he did that on earth during the redemption. Continuing on. Now, had I wanted to manifest the kingdom of my will, either when I came upon earth or before the goods of redemption would be recognized, for the most part possessed by creatures, my greatest saints would have been frightened. All would have thought Adam, innocent and holy, was unable to live and preserve in his kingdom endless light and divine sanctity. How can we do it? And you yourself, Jesus saying to Louisa, how many times have you not become frightened? My daughter, do not fear. You have more help than Adam did. You have the help of the God-made man, and all his works and pains as your defense, as your support, as your court's edge, which he did not have. Why then do you fear? Jesus couldn't just give the kingdom of divine will back right away if Adam lost it, because there's a lot of work to be done there. We now have the graces of the redemption to anchor us in the kingdom of the divine fiat. We don't have to fear like that we will just squander it like Adam did, although we of course always need to be on our guard against our own human wills. No. So as we can see, the parallel is almost perfect. Just as the closer redemption drew, God sent more prophets, so too today, the closer we draw to the new era, the more prophets God has sent. There's one of the most famous quotes from Louise's writings says, the master plan. It gives God's master plan of history and how he works in an extraordinary way every 2,000 years. And while some of you have doubtless heard this or read this already, those who don't, I really want to make sure we go through this. Jesus says, and this is January 29th, 1919, "My beloved daughter, I want to make known to you the order of my providence. Every course of 2,000 years I have renewed the world. In the first 2,000 years I renewed it with the flood. In the second 2,000 years I renewed it with my coming upon earth, which I manifested my humanity, from which, as though from many fissures, my divinity shone forth. And the good and the very saints of the following 2,000 years have lived with the fruits of my humanity, and in drops have enjoyed my divinity. Now we are at the turn of the third 2,000 years, and there will be a third renewal. This is the reason for the general confusion. It is nothing other than the preparation for the third renewal. And if in the second renewal I manifested what my humanity didn't suffer, and very little of what my divinity was operating, now in this third renewal, after the earth has been purged, the current generation destroyed for the most part, I will be even more generous with creatures. And I will accomplish the renewal by manifesting what my divinity did within my humanity, how my divine will acted within my human will, how everything remained linked within me, how I did and redid everything, and even one thought of each creature was redone by me and sealed with my divine volition. My love wants its outpouring and wants to make known the excesses which my divinity operated in my humanity for the good of creatures, which surpasses by far the excesses that my humanity operated externally. This is why I speak so often, this is why I speak to you about living my will, which I have not manifested to anyone until now. So the church has seen many triumphs over the 2,000-year history, many glorious triumphs. But it's quite clear that we have not exactly fully triumphed in our mission. That remains to be seen, and it is coming. Because of this concern, Louisa once said, "How can this kingdom of the divine will ever come? Sin abounds, evil worsens, creatures seem indisposed to me to receive a good so great. So much so that there is no soul, for how many good ones there might be, who truly wants to occupy themselves, to make known that which regards the divine will." And Jesus responded, "My daughter, everything is possible to us. Impossibilities, difficulties, insurmountable cliffs of creatures melt before our supreme majesty as snow now opposite our sun. Didn't it happen thus in the redemption? Sin abounded more than ever. There was hardly the little nucleus of people that longed for the Messiah. And in the midst of this nucleus, how many hypocrisies, how many sins of all kinds, often even idolatry. But it was decreed that I should come upon the earth. Before our decrees, all the evils cannot impede that which we want to do. Now as my coming upon earth was our decree, thus is decreed our kingdom of our will upon earth. Rather, it can be said that one and the other are one single decree, and that having completed the first act of this decree, there remains the second act to complete. It is true that the times are sad, the people themselves are tired, they see all the ways closed, they don't find a way of exit even for the necessary natural needs. The oppressions, the demands from the heads are unbearable, just suffering that they have elected, just suffering. They have elected for heads men without God, of evil life, without the just right to be heads. And they merit jail more than the law of the regime. Many thrones and empires have been upset, and those few that have remained are all shaky ones and in the act of being overthrown, so that the earth will remain almost without king, in the hand of iniquitous men. Poor people, my poor children, under the regime of men without pity, without heart, without graces to be able to act as guides to their dependents. The epoch of the Jewish people is already being repeated. that when I was near coming upon earth, they were without king, under the dominion of a foreign empire of barbaric and idolatrous men, and that didn't even know their Creator. And yet this was the sign of my imminent coming in the midst of them. Between that epoch and this, in many things they give each other a hand. And the disappearances of thrones and empires is the announcement that the kingdom of my divine will is not far off. So we're seeing all of the same connections. I've already went through all the things about prophecies, but it's not even just this prophetic explosion of the modern era. It's also God's predestined plan. It's every 2,000-year plan. So 2,000 years after the fall, he needed to renew the entire earth with the flood. 2,000 years after the flood, the redemption itself. Well, I think we know about where we are on the calendar now. That's about the final 2,000-year mark. A few words. And look, God didn't give us a specific date, and I sure don't know any dates. But it would be foolish not to just ponder this for a bit. The redemption, paschal mysteries, the crucifixion, death, and resurrection. Traditionally, we would think of that as being 33 AD. And it may very well have been. But Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich was shown that our calendar is a bit off, and actually most scholars agree that our calendar is 7 years off. And Blessed Emmerich was shown that it was actually 26 AD that the redemption occurred, the crucifixion, death, resurrection. Well, that puts the 2,000 mark of redemption at 2026, 7 years from now. That doesn't prove anything, of course not, but it's worth keeping in mind. It would certainly be fitting, would it not? It would certainly be quite fitting if the kingdom of the divine will came exactly 2,000 years, exactly 2,000 years after the kingdom of redemption. It doesn't have to, but maybe if we work hard enough, it will. Maybe if we spread this zealously enough, it will. All the other parables are there. And the more impossible it seems, the more that pleases God, perhaps, because it shows His power through it. This is not liberation theology. This is not us thinking we can build the kingdom of God on earth with our own hands. This is begging God for Him to deliver it to us by His omnipotence. And it's going to happen entirely miraculous, but not without our cooperation, not without our prayers, not without our ardent yearnings for it. I'll finish that quote real quick. Indeed, the nations will continue to struggle between themselves, some for war, some for revolution, between themselves and against my church. They have a fire that devours them in the midst of them. It doesn't give them peace, and they don't know how to give peace. It is the fire of sin, the fire of doing without God, that gives them no peace. And they will never have peace if they don't call God in the midst of them as regime and bond of union and peace. And I allow them to do it. And I will make them touch with their hands what it means to do without God. But this does not impede that the kingdom of my supreme fiat comes. First, we will deal with one single creature, forming the kingdom in her first, that is Louisa. Then with a few, that is you all, we're still in the very few stage of this kingdom. And then, making use of our omnipotence, we will spread it everywhere. He doesn't say, I'm going to go from a few to a few more, to a few more, to a few more. He says he can go from a few to everywhere. We can't allow ourselves to get despairing, thinking that this is growing slowly. It's okay. He needs a serious, zealous core of people devoted to this. And from that little, tiny core, he can explode the kingdom throughout the whole world, which he will do soon if we're faithful. The multiplication of the loaves and fishes, we all know that. We give him our, 5 loaves, 7 fish, and we feed the thousands with them. And that's certainly what we'll do with the kingdom. So, this is quite a bit of material from Jesus to Louisa, but I think that one thing has been made absolutely clear, as I said in the beginning of this talk. We are living in the most exciting times in history. The invitation is not only at the times, the most exciting times in history, it's that the invitation being offered to us is the most exciting invitation in history, to be the very ones through whom God's greatest intervention in history transpires. To be those people. Be attentive, Jesus says to us. But this is about something too great, and about the most important thing that exists in heaven and on earth. This is about placing the rights of our will in safety, about giving back to us the purpose of creation, about returning to us all the glory for which all things were made, and about making us give all the graces which our will had established to give to creatures, had they fulfilled our will in everything. The saints of the past centuries symbolized my humanity. They did not receive the mark of the Son of my resurrection, but the mark of the works of my humanity before my resurrection. Therefore, they will be many, almost like stars. They will form a beautiful ornament to heaven and my humanity. But the saints who lived in my will symbolize my resurrected humanity. It will be few. My resurrection symbolizes the saints who are living in my will. And this with reason, since each act, word, step, etc., done in my will, is a divine resurrection that the soul receives. The life of the church must follow the life of her head, Christ. He had his passion, which we're going to enter into very shortly in the church, but we tend to forget that he also had his resurrection, the time on earth, 40 days, and then his ascension. The church will also have its resurrected time on earth, the kingdom come. And that's for us to make happen. But there's a lot of work to make that happen. It's going to require our cooperation, effort, zeal. So get some good sleep. We'll talk about that tomorrow.